Dunder Mifflin Infinity is the second episode of the fourth season of The Office. This is directed by Craig Zisk, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. This is another two-parter or double feature, and I think it works well as a double feature. There wasn't any point where I thought this is dragging, this really could have just been a one episode. I think it works quite well. And it starts off with Toby seeing Pam and Jim kissing, and I kind of kept forgetting that nobody knows about them. Nobody knows that they're together, and I keep forgetting that. So he hands out paper to everybody with rules on public displays of affection in the office, and it reveals, of course, to everybody that Pam and Jim are together, and it's very sweet. Michael holds their hands, and it's a lovely moment, and I think it works really well that everybody now knows. Dwight, and I'm going through things pretty much chronologically, I might jump around a little bit, but Dwight gets a cat called Garbage, which I have to say is a cute name, to try and make up for the fact that he killed Sprinkles. And I like the fact that Angela didn't take Garbage, she wanted Sprinkles back. And she's still grieving, and I think that that's absolutely fair. Yes, credit to Dwight for trying to make amends, but he's still being really, really insensitive, and we'll come back to Dwight and Angela in a little bit. Rainn then arrives with facial hair, and he tells everybody that they can't just mess around with him and treat him the way they used to. He needs to be, I guess, treated the way they treated Jan. And Rainn definitely comes off as unlikable more than usual. I was often in agreement with a lot of Ryan's behaviour when he was at Scranton, because he was very much no nonsense, I'm here to do my job, and that made sense. But it seems like he's maybe a little bit above himself. Yes, he's had a promotion. He is technically above everybody else, but his attitude isn't very helpful. And it's not the attitude of somebody who is leading. It is the attitude of somebody who expects people to follow him regardless of his actions. And I feel like he needs to lead by example and be kind and welcoming to people's opinions and what they have to offer. And instead, he just has this attitude of, you will respect me. And that's it. And it's not very likeable. And I'm keen to see the direction they take with Rainn and how frequently he's going to be in the show. I hope he's in at least every couple of episodes. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And Ryan's actually there to give this presentation about Dunder Mifflin Infinity. They're basically bringing Dunder Mifflin a little bit more into the 21st century. They're having a website at long last, and everybody is getting a company BlackBerry, which just made me so nostalgic. I loved my BlackBerry so, so much. And honestly, if they created BlackBerries, I think you can still get business BlackBerries, but generally most providers don't do BlackBerries. But if they did, and if they had a camera the quality of I have a Samsung, I would absolutely go back to a BlackBerry. And then we have a sweet moment between Jim and Pam. And I think this actually is quite, well, I might contradict myself. I was going to say it shows that they're both quite good people, because Jim tells Pam, Dwight and Angela have been together for about 6 months, and Pam says, actually, it's been about 2 years. And I was going to say, that shows that they're actually quite good people, because even though they were close friends, they never gossiped with each other about this. But I guess they are now gossiping to each other about it. But they're in a relationship, so maybe we can excuse that. But I like the fact that they now both know, and it's probably a bit of a weight off of their shoulders, although maybe a little bit too late, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. Kelly is beyond annoying at this point in this episode. She's not accepting Ryan's authority. And I do feel like she was crossing boundaries. The others, when Rainn first came into the office, they weren't. They were just being polite and friendly, and maybe Michael was taking it a bit far, but he didn't have a reason to start demanding respect. But actually, he does with Kelly, because she's just completely taking it too far. She pretends to be pregnant to make him stay with her, and she's very annoying, but in a way that is definitely very, very entertaining, and I can understand Ryan's irritation. And Jan then arrives, which is a little bit awkward because she bumps into Rainn, who now has her job, of course, and she suggests to Michael that it's ageism. They're bringing in this new technology to push out the older people who maybe don't want to learn this new technology, who maybe aren't as quick with picking up new technology. And while I don't for a second think that that's what is happening with Dunder Mifflin Infinity, I do think that is definitely something in the workforce. And I think it does happen. And I guess over time that should become less and less because more and more people are growing up with technology. So over time, in theory, it shouldn't really be a problem. But I do feel like it is something that could still happen, which sucks. It really, really sucks. But then who is the onus on? Is it on the business for bringing in technology when they have employees who might need additional support but are not receiving it? Or is it on the employees for not going out of the way to make sure they can use the new equipment? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. I think it has to be a bit of both. And I'm sure there are companies where, well, neither party is willing to do what they need to, which sucks. We then have actually a moment that I wasn't expecting, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Michael, leaning into this ageism thing, decides to bring somebody to a meeting, and at first we don't know who it is. It's a character played by John Ingle, and he is revealed to everybody else as Robert Dunder, one of the founders of Dunder Mifflin. That is so awesome. I wasn't expecting that, and I genuinely got a little bit excited, and it was really great. And he's a character in, I think, his 80s, and he's talking to people, maybe not the most productive meeting, but it was a really, really lovely moment. What's not lovely for Dwight is that Angela decides to break up with him. So just as soon as Pam and Jim are sharing this information with each other, Angela breaks up with Dwight. Good for her. Because if somebody did that to my cat, regardless of whether my cat was ill and had a fungal infection under her butt, if anybody did that to my cat, I would be very, very devastated, to say the least, and I would want nothing to do with him. So good for Angela. Michael and Dwight are then... It's quite an odd moment, actually. Michael and Dwight are delivering gift baskets to the clients they've lost. And this didn't take the direction I was expecting. It might in the future if they touch upon it later on, but they were delivering these gift baskets to clients who had moved to companies that are maybe a little bit more in keeping with the times. But Michael was talking to these former clients, and he was saying things that he'd remembered about them, about their family. He remembered that one of them had a daughter who had a nut allergy. And it was clear that while his company, while Dunder Mifflin wasn't currently offering high-tech solutions, they were offering that personal touch. And I genuinely thought the episode was going in the direction with clients coming back to Michael because they realised that personal touch, having somebody who cares enough about them as a client to remember that their child has a nut allergy, they'd want to go back to that business relationship. And it didn't really take that direction. The direction it did go in was Michael driving into a lake, which is exceptionally random. It's because the sat-nav was telling him to take a right, and he didn't, and it was a mess, but very funny, but also very, very scary. And, well, I'd like to say that doesn't happen, but we do hear stories of people driving into places they shouldn't be because they're just completely trusting sat-nav, GPS, whatever. And I guess the lesson there is use your common sense as a human. Use the guidance of the sat-nav to some extent, but use your common sense. And Michael in that moment definitely did not. And towards the end of the episode, Rainn asks Pam if she wants to design some logos because they're still trying to find a logo for this new approach. And she's quite happy about this, quite excited. And I don't know if her logo will be chosen or not, but I hope so. And I didn't realise initially what he was doing. But then a couple of scenes later, Rainn asks Pam out to dinner. He's not aware that Pam is dating Jim. And it was really awkward. But what I think is quite interesting about this is he's asking the receptionist at Dunder Mifflin Scranton branch out for dinner. And there are two problems with this. Well, not problems, there's one problem, but there's one thing that I think is quite good, actually, because the problem is that he now lives in New York City, so even if he started dating her, that would be very awkward, and, there'd be a huge distance between them, and it seems really pointless to start that unless you're madly in love with Pam. But I don't think he is. I think he just wants to date her. But the reason I think it's actually really good is that at the beginning, I said he seems above himself. He seems to think he has more power than he has, talking about Rainn. He seems to act like he's the best thing ever to have happened, and he demands all of this respect. And I feel like dating the receptionist at the Scranton branch, in his eyes, could be beneath him. She's obviously not on a professional level at his level. But I like that. I like the fact that it showed that actually he's not just completely thinking he's above everything else and will only shop at certain places. He pointed out his haircut cost him $200, but actually he doesn't feel like he can only spend time or date people who are at his level, and I'm putting that in air quotes. So I like that it showed that actually he's not completely separated from his life at the Scranton branch. So I think that was a good thing. And obviously it was a good thing for Jim to see that actually he doesn't have it all because he doesn't have the girl he wants to date. So there were a couple of positive takeaways from that it showed that actually Rainn was still not completely detached from his old life and his old, I guess, status. Because it did seem like he was letting his status go to his head. He could only have expensive haircuts. In theory, he could only date or be friends with people higher up in the company. But by going to Pam, it kind of suggested that actually he doesn't completely think that way, and that maybe it's an image he's trying to create for himself to prove that he is worthy of this position at corporate. So I like that quite a lot. It's a good episode. There's a lot to think about. I don't know if I have any specific personal highlights. There wasn't actually anything that was that funny, to be perfectly honest. Michael screaming about turtles was quite funny. He's on about the chocolate turtles in the gift basket. They went back for the gift basket, and I don't know, it's not the direction I was expecting it to take, but I certainly didn't mind it. And I guess it's good that everybody knows about Pam and Jim now. And the blackberries, the nostalgia of the blackberries. Great episode. Maybe not the funniest, but a lot going on, a lot to look at, a lot to really enjoy. Dunder Mifflin Infinity is definitely a fun episode of The Office.